You've been telling yourself you'll work until 62, maybe 65. That's the plan. That's when the numbers work. But what if those extra 7 years cost you more than any amount of money could ever be worth? Let me tell you what my neighbor Janet figured out last year. She's 56 now. She was planning to work until 62, had it all mapped out. 6 more years, build up the savings a little more, let Social Security grow, the responsible plan. Then one day she came over looking stressed, said she needed to talk through something. "I did the math," she said, "and I think I'm making a mistake waiting until 62. I said, "What changed?" She pulled out a piece of paper covered in numbers. "If I retire at 55, I get 7 extra years of my life back. 7 years when I'm still young enough to actually enjoy it. And financially, it might actually cost me less than I thought." She retired 3 months later. Best decision she ever made. And I'm going to show you the exact math she used and the life calculation that made her realize she couldn't afford to wait. But first, you need to understand what those extra 7 years actually cost you, because it's not what you think. Okay, so here's the conventional wisdom everyone follows. Work until 62, that's when you can take Social Security early, or work until 65 or 67 for full benefits. That's what the calculators tell you. That's what the retirement planners say. And for most people, that's what they do. Here's where most people get this wrong. They're optimizing for money, maximum savings, maximum Social Security, maximum security, but they're not calculating the cost of time. And time, that's the one thing you can't earn back. The question isn't just, can you afford to retire at 55? The real question is, can you afford not to? Let me show you what I mean. First, the math, because you're probably thinking this is impossible. Here's Janet's situation at 55. $420,000 in her 401k, a paid-off house, no kids at home. Monthly expenses of about $3,200. Her original plan? Work until 62, keep contributing, build it up to about $600,000, then retire, take Social Security, live comfortably. Sounds solid, right? But here's what she realized. If she retires at 55 instead, she's got 7 years before Social Security kicks in. 7 years times $3,200 a month equals $268,800 she needs to cover. She's got $420,000 saved, so she'd pull $270,000 over those 7 years. That leaves her with $150,000 at 62. If you're doing this math in your head right now and panicking, hold on, because that money keeps growing even while she's pulling from it. At a conservative 6% return, she's actually got about $190,000 left at 62, not $150,000. Now here's the key. At 62, Social Security kicks in. She gets about $1,800 a month. Her expenses are $3,200, so she needs to pull $1,400 a month from savings to make up the difference. At that rate, her $190,000 lasts about 11 years. She's 73. Here's where it gets interesting. At 70, her required minimum distributions might kick in depending on her accounts, or she adjusts spending slightly, or she picks up some part-time work if she wants. The point is, the math works. It's tight, but it works. Compare that to working until 62. She adds 7 more years of contributions. Her 401k grows to $600,000. At 62, she retires, takes Social Security, lives on $2,400 from Social Security, plus pulling $1,200 a month from savings. Her $600,000 lasts longer. She's got more cushion. But here's the trade-off nobody talks about. She worked 7 extra years for that cushion. 7 years she'll never get back. 7 years between 55 and 62, the young retirement years. If this sounds familiar, if you're pushing retirement back for just a few more years, here's what you need to hear. Those years aren't equal. 55 to 62 is fundamentally different than 65 to 72. Now, here's the part that really matters. Let's talk about what those 7 years actually mean. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. 55 to 62 are the best retirement years you'll ever have. You're young enough to travel, to hike, to play with grandkids, to start new hobbies. Your body still works. Your energy's still decent. You can do things. By the time you're 70, 75, you're slowing down. Maybe you're dealing with arthritis, high blood pressure, diabetes, bad knees. Maybe you can still travel, but it's harder, more tiring, less enjoyable. This is where most retirees get blindsided. They spend their healthy years working for a comfortable retirement. Then they get to retirement, and they're too tired to enjoy it. Janet's dad worked until 65, retired with a solid pension and savings. He and Janet's mom had big plans. They were going to travel, see Europe, visit national parks. At 67, her dad had a heart attack. Survived, but his energy was never the same. At 70, her mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's. They took one trip to Europe. That was it. The rest of their plans never happened. Janet watched that, and she realized something. Someday isn't guaranteed. The trip you're planning for 65 might not happen, because by 65, your health might not cooperate. But at 55, you've got time. You've got energy. Janet's now 56. She's been retired a year. She took a 2-week road trip through the Southwest, hiked in Utah, camped under the stars. She started taking guitar lessons, something she always wanted to do but never had time for. She babysits her grandson twice a week, actually plays with him, gets on the floor, throws him around. She said, "I couldn't do this at 70. I can barely do it now some days, but I'm doing it, and I'm so glad I didn't wait." If you're 55 right now and thinking you need to work 7 more years, ask yourself this. What are you going to do with those 7 years if you retire now? And will you still be able to do those things at 65? Now let's talk about what it actually takes to pull this off. Because retiring at 55 isn't for everyone, but it's possible for more people than you think. Here's what you need. 1, a paid-off house or very low housing costs. This is the big one. If you've got a $1,500 mortgage, retiring at 55 is tough. But if your house is paid off, your biggest expense just disappeared. Janet's housing costs are about $400 a month, property taxes and insurance. That's it. That makes everything else manageable. 2, at least $350,000 to $500,000 saved. You need enough to bridge the gap from 55 to 62 when Social Security kicks in. 7 years times $3,500 a month is about $294,000. But your savings keep growing while you're pulling from it, so you don't need the full amount up front. $400,000 is a good target. More is better, but $400,000 makes it work. 3, low monthly expenses. If you're spending $5,000 a month, you need a lot more saved. But if you're spending $3,000 or less, that's doable. Janet cut her expenses before she retired, paid off the car, cut cable, dropped subscription she wasn't using, got her monthly spending down to $3,200. That's the key. 4, willingness to be flexible. Some years the market's going to be down. You might need to pull less, spend less, adjust. You're not going to have a huge cushion. You need to be okay with that. If this describes your situation, paid off house, $400,000 saved, low expenses, you might be closer to 55 than you think. 5, a plan for healthcare until 65. This is the tricky part. If you retire at 55, you've got 10 years until Medicare. You need health insurance, and it's not cheap. Janet's paying about $650 a month for a marketplace plan. It's a high deductible plan, but it covers catastrophic stuff. That's $7,800 a year, real money. But she budgeted for it, and she's healthy, so she's not hitting the deductible most years. At 65, she'll get on Medicare, and that cost drops to about $200 a month. But you've got a plan for those 10 years. Now, here's who shouldn't do this. Don't retire at 55 if 1, you don't have at least $350,000 saved. If you've got less than that, you're going to run out of money before Social Security kicks in. Don't do it. Wait, build the savings, then retire. 2, you still got a mortgage or high debt. If you're paying $1,500 a month in housing costs, plus car payments, plus credit card debt, the math doesn't work. Pay off the debt first, then think about early retirement. 3, your monthly expenses are over $4,000. You need more saved to support that level of spending, or you need to cut expenses. But retiring at 55 with high expenses is a recipe for running out of money. 4, you love your job. If you actually enjoy working, there's no reason to retire early just because you can. Work because you want to, not because you have to. That's the dream. But if you're miserable and the math works, get out. Janet was talking to a guy at her office who retired at 67. He's 72 now. She asked him, if you could go back, would you retire earlier? He didn't even hesitate. I'd retire at 55. I'd give up half my savings to have those 12 years back. She asked why. He said, I had plans. Me and my wife were going to travel, do all the things we put off. But by the time I retired, she had dementia. We never got to do any of it. He looked at Janet and said, don't wait. You think you're being responsible, but you're gambling with time you don't have. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because you can always make more money. You can adjust your budget, you can work part-time if you need to, but you can't make more time. The years between 55 and 65, those are prime years. You're still healthy, still energetic, still you. By 70, you're a different person, slower, tired, limited. If you're sitting here right now thinking, maybe I should wait just to be safe, here's what you need to know. The regret of retiring too late is way worse than the regret of retiring too early. You can fix money problems. You can't fix lost time. Look, I'm not saying everyone should retire at 55, but I am saying don't assume you have to wait until 62 just because that's the normal age. Run the numbers. Actually run them. What if you retired at 55? What would it take? How much would you need to pull from savings each year? You might be surprised. It might be closer than you think. And then ask yourself the life question. What would you do with 7 extra years of freedom? Would you travel? Start a hobby? Spend time with grandkids? Finally write that book? Whatever it is it worth the trade-off of a smaller financial cushion? For Janet, it was, and she hasn't regretted it for a second. So, here's your homework this week. 1. Pull up a retirement calculator. Run the numbers for retiring at 55, 60, and 62. See what each scenario actually looks like. 2. Look at your current expenses. What could you cut if you had to? What's your bare minimum monthly number? 3. Talk to someone who retired early. Ask them if they regret it. I bet they don't. 4. Ask yourself honestly, what am I waiting for? Is it really the money, or is it fear? Because if the math works, even barely, maybe it's time to stop waiting. You've got one life, one timeline. The years between 55 and 65 are different than the years between 65 and 75. Don't spend your best years working for a retirement you might be too tired to enjoy. All right, that's it from the porch today. Next time, we're talking about the 3 income streams every retiree should have, because relying on just Social Security is like sitting on a one-legged stool. See you then.